All right, so we're talking about large dog outcomes, bringing the shelter and the community together with some data-proven interventions. Like I mentioned, I'm from the Kentucky Humane Society. My name is Melissa. I'm the behavior manager there. And Dr. Carly Fawn is my co-presenter who did a bunch of research for this presentation. So why are we here today? So we're going to review a study it's a survey study that Dr. Carly put out along with, I think, Dr. Segerson and some other people, really looking at behavior support in shelters, what's needed, what's doing well, what people wanted help with. And so we're going to pair that with some of the programs that I've been doing, or my team has been doing at the Kentucky Humane Society, to kind of have filled some of those gaps where we saw that there was some need. And then we're going to look a little bit at the community and how working with them can help save more lives. So the survey that was sent out, did anybody here do that survey? Do you know what survey I'm talking about? Some of you sent out basically 21 questions asking what kind of programs you have, what you wanted to do better, what you did really well, all that kind of stuff. So talked about like enrichment, in shelter stuff, foster care, adoption support, all that kind of stuff. So there's 308 respondents. And then this is kind of the breakdown. So I'm just curious here how many people are in the CEO director range. Few of you. Behavior director, manager, coordinator, raise your hand. Quite a few of you. Behavior staff. Awesome. And then other amazing people, right? Awesome. Thank you all for being here. So we're kind of more in that middle range, the operations and then behavior people. So awesome. Glad to see you all here. And these are what it looked at: the behavior management in shelter, bite reporting, enrichment in the shelter, the support that we're giving to the adopters, community, foster care, all that kind of stuff. So kind of all the components of sheltering, both prior to even coming to the shelter, or the community support, and then while at the shelter, and then after the animals leave. And I said shelter, but this could be applicable to rescues as well. We're mainly looking at a lot of places that have like brick and mortar type deals. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about before we talk about the needs is like what people are doing really well. And when I spoke here about 5 years ago, the biggest topic was enrichment and how to get enrichment into shelters and how to do it without kind of overbearing your staff. And we found that really people have started to do a really good job and feel that they have a really good program. So there's still a lot that don't have or are beginning, but there's also quite a few that are doing a lot. So we wanted to highlight that as well and say, like, good job, right? People are learning more and doing more, and that's, what we can do. So looks like at least 50% have a great exercise plan, training plan, play dates or play groups, which are huge for shelter stress and things like that. So really good job with shelter enrichment. All right, so this was another one that Dr. Carly wanted to put in regards to dog outcomes. And basically what's there. We know that there's a need for multiple languages, right? A lot of Spanish speaking, but even in general. But there's a lot of good things that are happening as well. So just kind of wanted to break that out as well so people could see the answers and how they compared maybe to what you're doing at your own shelter. So the first topic here is going to be a little bit kind of, I guess, maybe uncomfortable because we're talking about dog bites, fatalities, basically risk to the community. And so looking at, do you keep track of these that are happening in your community? Do you keep track of these that are happening at the shelter or in foster homes? Kind of to keep track of where your community is at in general. Are you seeing a lot of bites? Are you seeing a lot of bites in your foster homes? Do you need training in that sense? Do you need to spread out more to your community and look at that? So there's a lot that we're doing, but a lot that we could do. And this is going to lead into, again, the bite reporting process, what's occurring. We're doing a really good job, keeping track of what's happening in the shelter and foster homes, but maybe in the community we could do a better job of that. So this is what people had said were reasons for euthanasia at their shelter. So like I said, we're getting into kind of a little icky topic, but we got to talk about it, right? So these are reasons why people choose to euthanize, or at least look at the euthanization process. And most of it, again, is like dog aggression towards familiar or unfamiliar people. And those are really the things that affect your community, right? If the dog is aggressive towards people they don't know, or even people they do know, it's a safety risk, right? So you can see most of these make sense, maybe not housing some of these, but we don't know the background, right? But this is basically where the answers came out to. Before I start talking about this, it was important, Carly and I talked about making sure that we say that we're not here to judge anybody. We're not here to tell you what to do. I am going to talk about behavioral euthanasia, but I'm not here to sell you on it. I'm not here to tell you what to do and when. But it is something that most of us are going to experience, and we need to talk about it, and we need to find ways to address it. And so behavioral euthanasia is something that I feel is pretty much a part of responsible animal welfare, right? There's just some animals that are not going to be safe for our community, and we can't send those out. We can't ruin the name of sheltering by sending out unsafe animals. And unless you have a sanctuary where you can house animals in a responsible way, providing enrichment, quality of life, that kind of thing, then behavioral euthanasia is something you're going to have to look into. And I have a similar quote on my door at work: just because a decision hurts doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. So I mean, behavioral euthanasia is one of those that just, it never feels good, right? But sometimes it's the right decision that we just have to make. And so we created something called the Behavior Matrix at the Kentucky Humane Society, which is a tool. And I want to reiterate, it's a tool. It's not like something that is a set, they get this score and they get euthanized or not, but it's something that helps us determine where we want to proceed with an animal. And so the behavior matrix I'm going to show you is specific based on your own organization's risk tolerance. And I don't have the whole thing on here, but I can send it to people, a template if they want. And just remember, making these decisions is specific to your organization. Everybody has different resources, different risk tolerances, different communities, right? So the way the matrix works is it's basically a spreadsheet that has several categories of risk and then adoptability, and it weights those. And some of the categories are things like size, right? There's a difference between a small and a large dog, whether it's fair or not. It is what it is. But also things like bites, attempts of bites or bites in general, where those bites were, the intensity of the bite. We use the Dunbar scale. And all those kind of things. And so we go through there and we rate and we come up with a final number. And so this reduces bias and increases consistency because things just are what they are, right? Like Dunbar scale is pretty clear as far as what a bite is. Size of the dog is pretty clear, right? All those things. Some things are subjective as far as maybe determining what the intention of the bite was or things like that. But for the most part, it does decrease some of that bias. And we know there's bias there, right? Anybody that works with behavior dogs is going to know that sometimes you're the only one that those dogs like, right? And you see a different dog in front of you that somebody else doesn't see, right? So we have to try to get around that by just trying to be more objective. And I'll have to say that this not only helps us make the decision to euthanize, but also to not euthanize. And for an example, I have a foster dog, Bart, who was left at our front door in a crate in 90 plus degree weather. We got him, took him out, and they did medical and set up on him almost immediately. He did not like that. He was scared. He growled. He did some other things. He's very stoic, and he's a big dog, and so it scared a lot of people. And the euthanasia was brought up for him, even though he hadn't really bit anybody. He hadn't really done anything. He just gave people kind of that weird feeling. But after working with him for a bit, we did the matrix on him and showed that where he comes in our scale really isn't necessary. Euthanasia isn't really something that should be on the table. If anything, we should start working with him, do some training, that kind of thing. And now he's a foster in my home and doing really well. So if anybody wants a really well-trained pit bull, I know you all have them, but I have one too. And I offer free lifetime babysitting if you're in the Louisville area. But anyway, so that it can help both ways, right? Because there's a lot of, like I said, that bias. This also allows for some flexibility due to mitigating circumstances. We know that any dog can bite, right, when there's a fear component to it, sometimes medical, if an animal's in pain, whatever it is. So like I said, we don't use this and say this number is for sure going to be euthanized. It's just looking at it and giving us an idea of where they stand. This increases staff confidence because staff can see this document, they can ask questions, and they see, where the animal scored on each section. And so it helps them understand what we're looking at and why we made the decision. And then they can't, in the past, we might have had different directors that, didn't like a certain animal or whatever. And so they'd say, oh, you don't like this animal, so you're just going to euthanize them, right? So this can kind of get rid of that because it's an objective number that we're looking at. And this is also done via group. And if anybody went to Megan Colville's presentation yesterday, she did a great job talking about the process they do at Cincinnati Animal Care. She said specifically to make sure you're doing this as a group. And I 100% agree with that. Not one person should have that responsibility. It should be done as a group. Like I mentioned, this matrix can be done by multiple people in order to, again, reduce that bias and have that group input. And then reducing that emotional burden, right? Because we feel it, right, when we have to make those decisions. We don't like it, but it's just part of the welfare that we have to do. And so this, again, helps you just feel a little bit better that your decision was based on facts and not necessarily the bias. So this is what it looks like, all nice and blurry. Couldn't get a better picture, but you kind of get the idea. So it's a spreadsheet and with fun colors. And like I said, dog size is the first one because we know just large dogs. And you probably can't see it, but large is 40 to 60 pounds. And some of you might laugh like, haha, that is not a large dog. But this is how our intake is set up. So we just matched that. Number of bites, severity, location. So, did they bite whatever body part was reaching towards them or did they jump up and bite someone's face? Triggers, intent, warning signs. So there's a whole other list, and there's also a section about adoptability. So in addition to the behavior things, are there medical issues that an adopter might need to address? Is the animal selective with other animals? Can they be placed with dogs or cats? So that all affects their adoptability. On the bottom here, we have different tabs. So we have a key that just explains what each section is supposed to be talking about. The score ranges. So with the score ranges, we had to do a lot of work on the front end and run different dogs through the matrix to determine what was like what was the basis of the number, like where just a normal adoptable dog would lie, where a dog with maybe some behavior challenges would lie, and then where a dog that we would send to euthanasia, where they would lie. And so that score range kind of just helped us figure out where the numbers are. Otherwise, they're just kind of arbitrary at first, right? Dunbar scale so that we can make sure we're talking about the same thing. So you should be familiar with that, but if you're not, Dr. Ian Dunbar put together a scale for bites to just tell you where they lie. And it starts from bite level 1, which is not even a contact bite, but a snap, all the way to 6, which is basically mauling. The last thing we have on this tab is a communication responsibilities, which is also important. Again, Megan talked about this in her session yesterday. You want to make sure that all people involved get communication before the animal is euthanized, if that's what decision is made, right? There's sometimes volunteers, staff, people that you might not know have a relationship with an animal that you want to make sure that you tell. And so we have a plan so that when we do make a decision that our PR team is notified, the adoption staff, anybody that might have worked with that animal, so that we can make sure that everybody is aware. Everybody can ask questions. Everybody can take the time to maybe give that animal some treats, be with them on their last day, whatever it is. So that's a super important part of it too. But again, this matrix has really, really helped us just get a little bit more on track and feel better about our decisions. Like I said, you don't feel great about them, but at least you feel like you've given the chance and you've really analyzed all the information. And we do sometimes do multiple of these as the animal goes through our organization as well. Hi, do you want to say anything yet? Or Dr. Carly Fawn, my friends. And they do have a microphone over there if you want to put it on. It's on the, there you go. I'll just keep talking while she does that since this is me anyway. All right, so as I mentioned, so now that's all done, right? We're all the downer stuff is done. Now we're going to talk about some fun things. So, like I said, I'm from Kentucky Humane Society in Louisville, Kentucky, and I just wanted to give everybody kind of an idea of where our shelter is compared to probably like where you're from. We're a private nonprofit. We don't have a government contract, but we do work a lot with our local municipal shelter. We're the state's largest pet adoption agency and the oldest. We have 2 adoption centers, our main campus and our east campus, and then we also have a horse farm, which I don't get to go to a lot, but we have it. A cat cafe partner who just had their 5-year anniversary and their 8,000th adoption. A spay neuter clinic, and our caravan, which is our most recent addition, which was funded by a grant, and it's a mobile clinic. Our shelter staff, and that's for multiple locations, our animal care, vet, all that is about 50 employees, and then we have some additional administration, PR staff. We also intake about 6, I don't know why I didn't put that on there because that seems important, but 6,000 is about our intake, and that's about what we adopt out. It was roughly 50-50 cats and dogs. Over the last 2 years, we've had adopted out more cats than dogs. Some of you may know Ethan. He was kind of a big story a couple years ago. He was left on our doorstep basically dying. He was super, super skinny. Our vet team like jumped into action, took care of him, saved him, and he's become this kind of like beacon of hope for a lot of people. And I understand that a lot of you you get probably dogs like this all the time, right? We were lucky to get the promotion and get all the marketing and all the stuff that we did around him. And we were able to use all the funds and all the things that we got from that to share with our community partners, our rural shelters and things like that. So that's Ethan. I'm not as like starstruck because I have to pick up his poop and listen to him bark all the time. But a lot of people still, like, we were doing a silent auction and people are like bidding like thousands of dollars to spend a day with him. So get yourself one of those dogs.
Okay. Am I working? Can you hear me? Okay. So sorry, I'm a little late. Little challenges this morning, last night. I'm Dr. Carly. So, should I just pick up here?
Yeah.
Go into the research and then move on?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, I'm sure Melissa already told you that we're talking about a research project that me and Dr. Sheila conducted, and we're pairing that with some of the amazing programs that Melissa and her team have implemented at Kentucky Humane Society. So, for the survey that Dr. Sheila Sagerson and I from Maddie's Fund conducted, we were looking at behavior support programs across the country, and these were the primary areas of interest that we were looking at. We're not going to talk about all of those today, but we'll talk about a few of them. And so starting with foster care and support, yes, this is a large dog outcomes presentation, but I had to include a very cute picture of foster kittens because, I mean, we all need to foster kittens and, you know, all the things. So here you can see from our survey, we asked about various questions. I'm going to walk a little closer. Whether or not organizations have or don't have or are beginning to develop programs, whether they need it, they have the program, but they need improvement, and then whether or not they have a good or excellent program. So on the x-axis here on the bottom, you can see we asked several questions, just whether or not they have foster care in general for dogs, whether they have it with behavior needs, special circumstances such as temporary stays, maybe trying to find their owner, basic training for dogs. But what you can see is some call-outs here with the percentages, and you can see that, you know, for foster care in general, about the majority have that of the respondents. And I think we had about 151. Did you already go through that slide?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you can see for dogs with behavior needs, they have the program for fostering for dogs with behavior needs, but they do need some improvement in their programming. So great, they've got it. And then you can see there's where the green line is, that's don't have or beginning to implement. And that's where we start to see some of the gaps and areas of improvement that we can work with our teams and all of us here in this room and together to figure out how we can implement behavior modification into foster care support, how we can do things like behavior support by staff, and especially peer-to-peer support from foster care. And you'll hear us talk a little bit more about peer-to-peer support too.
All right. So talking about foster, I wanted to share something that is going super well at my shelter. It's like gangbusters right now, is foster to adopt. We've termed it foster first because everybody got used to foster to adopt. And so now we call it foster first, so we have to change that. But it really has worked well. And so foster to adopt isn't something new, but I think it's something that people have been hesitant to get on board with because it seems like more work. But honestly, it has not been more work for us and has actually allowed us to schedule things a little bit better. So our foster to adopt used to be just for like field fosters or like somebody that found maybe a stray dog that they were going to hold for the stray period and then they wanted to adopt. They weren't going to be long-term fosters for us. We weren't going to make them go through all the foster orientation, all that kind of stuff. So we were going to just send them home with basic information and then have them come back and do all the necessary things at that time. So that worked well for us, but then we started to have a lot more behavior dogs. And another plug for a session, I don't think it happened yet, but the Unicorn Foster Program, if any of you have a chance to go to that, Brittany Fleming's talk, she has a whole program where she does basically fostering for behavioral challenged dogs. So we started doing that for behavior dogs because it's hard to just like put a dog in a home and say good luck, especially with behavior challenges, right? So we added that in. Then we expanded to long stay animals. So at one point, our length of stay was about 10 to 12 days. So at 30 days, we started to offer this program because that's what we term long stay. And again, I know some of you are laughing like, that's not long. But that's, again, depends on your organization. Now we have it available for almost every animal. And it's, again, really helped because people, they want to commit, right? There's that commitment that they understand, right, when they're taking an animal home. So it's a lot. And if you think about it with us, like, I don't know, I'm divorced. Like, so I have met a person, thought I wanted to be with them forever, and then that changed, right? And I knew them for a lot longer than an hour or two beforehand. So if you think about it, when we're taking animals home, we're kind of making that same commitment with very, very little information. So it's okay if it doesn't work out. When we send animals to home for a foster, if it doesn't work out, we say, hey, that was a foster placement. We got more information about the dog, and we got more information about the person. So we have a 2-week trial period, sometimes longer, and then the adopter is supported by behavior and medical staff. Some of our numbers here. So 80% were adopted by that first foster that they went into, but then 92% of that 20% that came back were adopted by the next foster home. So we were able to find out more about the animal and place them in a foster home. We currently have, well, now it's 19, I checked last night, in foster first. I say start tracking early because we didn't, and so it was really hard to go back and get the numbers. I just had to use a lot of just memory. So if you're gonna do this, start tracking. We now have a separate station Pet Point where we can find the information. We're also getting potential new fosters from this, so people where the first foster didn't work out, or maybe they did, they just had a really good experience, they're gonna come back and foster for us later. And even those people too, we found out more not about the animals, but also about the people, and so we can also place dogs more appropriate for those people. And then the staff time, like I said, is about the same. So what we do is when somebody takes an animal home, they get basic adoption counseling, things they need to know, what they need to come back for, all that kind of stuff. And then when they do the final adoption, we can schedule it either virtually or they can come in, but we can schedule it when there's a low period or schedule it virtually with somebody that doesn't do adoption counseling all the time, somebody that has extra time, that kind of thing. So we're able to utilize more staff in about the same amount of time. And the last thing with foster, I just want to point out, we have a whole website just dedicated to fosters, and I really love it because it has like everything you need to know on it. It even has our training program, so virtual training, so you can start training with your dog when you get home. If you're taking cats or kittens home, you can learn about that. All kinds of stuff on there. So that's a really great support system. Not everybody looks at it. Sometimes they just go on Facebook and ask a question, and it's fine. But if you want to get research or get information, this is a great place to find it. So I'm really proud of this program. And like I said, we're just really ramping up and kind of going gangbusters. And it's really, really paying off for us. We've had a lot of great animals go to foster.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so they're doing, again, amazing things at Kentucky
Oops,
Humane
sorry.
Society.
Just pressing buttons.
This is another graph. I won't bore you so much, trust me. So we also asked about behavior support for the communities in general. And the green bar is don't have or beginning to implement or develop. And so you can see here, there's a lot of high green bars. And so what we've seen from this research overall is that there's more in-shelter support for dogs that have behavior challenges than there is for out-of-shelter support. And that's what we're all working to do, right, is support our fosters, our adopters, and our community included to prevent intake at prevention program, or have intake prevention programs and things like that. So again, this survey, I'm not trying to point out all the some of the like the gaps or like areas of improvement. It's not a judgment, it's not anything, but it's information that we really need to know to keep moving the needle towards saving more lives. And so here you can see again with the green bar that pretty much across the realm here, from intake prevention programs to tools to be given and loaned to the public, which could be harnesses, leashes, anything like that. You start to see a little rise on that one for good and excellent programs. But overall, for community support, this is where we collectively, and we've been talking about this already all week, even though it's just day 2. So community is so important. We have to connect with our community to make an impact. And as Francis Batista said yesterday, the public is not the problem, they are the solution. And so we really need to embrace our community and let them know, as Tisha said yesterday morning in the opening session, what we need so that they can actually help us. The community can be part of us. It's not they, us, anything like that. So again, here's just an overall of some basic things, dog behavior education for free versus paid, things like that, online behavior resources. And I think there's a lot of ways that not just national organizations, but rescues and shelters across can have these SOPs and processes and be able to share them out as needed.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our pet resource services. How many here have like a helpline or intake diversion or, okay, some of you, awesome. All right, cool. So this is something also that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of my shelter. I think we do a lot of great stuff, but this is one that really, again, has kind of blown up and kind of become something different than it started. But it used to be called Helpline. Again, we got complacent with that, so now we're calling it Pet Resource Services. But they answer cat and dog behavior questions. They do all that kind of stuff, find pet-friendly housing. They also handle our owner surrender communications, which we had 1,600 animals surrendered in 2022, and if you think not all of those that were requested were surrendered, so they probably had even more of that. So they handle a lot. But this is also just more good stuff that they do. So just kind of veterinary care. We have something called Vet-A-K. So we're super lucky to have a vet on staff who is amazing, and she just loves to do weird random stuff, especially if it's bloody. And so people, like we've had dogs, so maybe like have a blockage, something that they ate or whatever, and the people couldn't afford to go to the vet. So they call us, and we've been lucky enough to get them in and have them get surgery through our organization. So we call it Vet-A-K, kind of like Medicaid. So just helping assist that way. We also did a safety net foster program where if people needed a place for their animal to hang for a bit while they're looking for housing, maybe going through a treatment, whatever it is, we were able to help with that. And then if they can't reclaim their animal, then we do take them and adopt them out. But 80% of those were returned to their owners. Unfortunately, right now with the surge in animals needing foster, we haven't been able to do as much of that. Again, we've been reaching out to our community and kind of telling them where this need is and hoping that maybe that's something that we can get back again. But Shelby Schultz, who's our pet resource services manager, and the one who kind of started all, I asked her, like, where do you start with this, right? Because every organization is different. Some people maybe have like 2 people. We work with a lot of rural shelters who have very limited staff. So to do something like this seems like overwhelming, right? But She said there are things you can do no matter what size, shape of your organization. And sometimes it's just a different conversation, right? It could be like, I want to surrender my dog, instead of you saying, oh, okay, and taking them. It's, well, what do you need? Is there something I can do to help you? Is there something that you need to keep your animal with you? There's a lot of grants out there, and there's a lot of private funding. Just people that, if you ask and say there's a need, will respond. So really just changing that conversation about intake, about what we can do. And maybe it's, we can't take your dog in today, but can we help you? Can we give you something to maybe take your dog in next week, right? So we can manage that flow a little bit. So there's a lot that we can do with that. Our helpline started with one manager and one volunteer. And the volunteer was a behavior person, so she kind of handled the behavior aspect of it. But there's a lot you can do with this. And Shelby has said that if you want information, you can email Pet Resource Services at kyhumane.org. She's got a ton of information. She's also speaking in, I think, HSUS next year about doing this. And I know it might have passed, but I know I saw that there was at least one session here about building a helpline or a resource center. So definitely is something that to look into if you don't have this already. All right, back to you.
Yeah, back to me. All right, so this is a graph where we asked about support for post-adoption, well, pre and post-adoption. And so again, you can see that there's some areas for improvement. There's also areas where we're doing things really good. So post-adoption behavior consults, just above 30% for both needs improvement. They have the program, but they're improving it, working on improving it, versus same thing, similar number for good or excellent program for post-adoption behavior consults. You can see on the left, and this is the same thing for fosters that we found, was that peer-to-peer support is not represented in the organizations that responded to our survey. And so that peer-to-peer support can be really, really critical in building relationships within your community, but also relieving your staff from needing to work with some post-adopters or fosters, whatever it might be, and training up some of your adopters and your current fosters to be able to work with each other before coming to us, and kind of troubleshoot some problems as needed and work together. Again, you can see dog behavior education for free is lower as well. Dog behavior education for paid is obviously not very well represented in this. But these are obviously some of the really important questions that we wanted to know about. Again, this study was to get a baseline understanding of behavior support programs across the country. And we hope to be able to do this survey again to see what it's like, since we conducted this back in 2021. So obviously, again, like there's some really great, we all know there's great things happening with adopter support and stuff like that. But there's always room for improvement, room for learning, and so that's what we also saw in the survey.
All right.
And then, of course, Melissa has amazing programming to talk about.
As I'm a behavior nerd, this is really my jam. If you thought I was talking fast before, this is, But post-adoption training, I'm curious, how many of you have like a Facebook page or some connector for adopters, like after they've adopted? Awesome. And how many of you do behavior like post-adoption classes okay, awesome, perfect. All right, so this is something that I'm, again, really passionate about. There's a lot of different training support that you can do post-adoption. We have group classes, we have private training, transfer sessions, which are for our behavior dogs. We'll talk about those in a second. And then some virtual training. If you do nothing, if you have no other program other than this, please see Good Pup. I don't work for them. I'm not getting a kickback. I'm just a fan because it's free for you as a organization. Actually, if they go beyond the first week, which is free, you get a referral back to your organization. So this is a virtual training company that has certified trainers. I've talked to them. They're Great trainers, great availabilities. I think they even have some bilingual availability, things like that. And they can get to people like within the day, right? So if you have an adopter that's just kind of freaking out and you can't get to them, I always mention this because this is somebody that they can, kind of ease their mind a little bit, tell them like, no, your puppy is not biting you unusually more than any other puppy. Stuff like that until you maybe can get to them. So we've worked with Good Pup simultaneously where they've helped an adopter and then we've been able to get to them classes or private training a little bit later. We also have a virtual training program with Milena DeMartini. If you've never heard of her, she's like the separation anxiety guru. Setbanks is one that's super hard to work on in a shelter. You probably know if you've had any dogs like that. So instead of taking them in, or if we get them, we try to pair them up with this program. So Milena's given us a 50% discount. So our program's normally $200, we get it for $100, and then we can offer grants usually to cover the rest of that if an adopter needs it, or somebody that maybe is struggling with that with their own dog. So there's a lot of good programs out there. We also created our own content during COVID when all our group classes shut down. We put together a virtual puppy and manners class, and so we offer this as well. YouTube has some great trainers. My favorite is Emily Larlam from Kiko Pup, but there's a lot out there. So there's things like that you can do. In 2022, the post-adoption training that we did, we had 658 unique animals go through the programs, whether it be private training or group classes. 209 were KHS alum, and 30% of those KHS alum utilize either grant funding or coupon and discount codes, which we give to adopters. So quite a few were able to utilize that. And the Dogs in the Behavior program go home with transfer sessions. So those are teaching the adopter how to do the training that we've done and how to do anything that the dog might need going forward. We used to just do one, but now we've done a lot more because, adopters aren't professional trainers or even sometimes novice trainers. They're brand new, right? So to teach them how to do all this stuff in one session can be hard. So in addition to that, there's a lot of studies out there that document the importance of training assistants, just having just that support for adopters. Again, they're not professional trainers, they're not professional dog people. Things that are normal dog stuff can seem weird to them, so they just need that help and support. And then also for pet retention too, we've had quite a few. I tried to pull the numbers and it was super hard, so I just gave up. But basically, I know there's a lot, and our pet resource services keep track of a lot of animals that we get calls where like I'm struggling with this or that, and we set them up with training, and we've been able to help them keep their pet because now they can handle those behavior challenges. So there's a lot of pet retention along with that. So when we do group classes, so I teach some, but we also have contract trainers. And the way that we do this is we basically split it. We let them use our facility. They get 50% of the revenue. We get 50%. We do all the like admin stuff, sign up, website, whatever. And so the way that we have it set up, we're never gonna lose money on it, right? So it's kind of a win-win for both. So if you have a trainer in the area that you like and trust and you have a space, ask them if they'd like to teach a class there. Again, it doesn't have to be real fancy. It can be just a basic class. You can make it cheap. We're lower than any other place in the area because we want it to be accessible to people. And, again, like it's a win-win for the trainers in the area, for the adopters, for all of us. So I just, like I said, urge you, if nothing else, check Good Pup. And for behavior resources, Best Friends has a great website. Maddie's has a great website. Best Friends also has a Spanish website, so there's a lot of resources out there. You don't have to recreate the wheel for that kind of stuff.
And also real quick, APDT and IAABC has great search engines for finding a trainer or behavior consultant in your area, so always reach out if needed.
Yes, I'm happy to refer people.
All right, we're already there, sorry. Okay, so wrapping up, we talked about, Melissa talked a lot about, that there's clearly more in-shelter work being conducted from the behavior support programming perspective for our large dogs than there is out-of-shelter support. So again, we wanted to do this survey to see what's the state of sheltering for behavior support across the country. What's going well, who's doing what, where are the gaps, who's fulfilling those gaps, and how can we connect people in those ways. Obviously, as Melissa has talked about, there's plenty of programs to be implemented to fill some of these gaps. It's not going to be, a one-shape-fits-all kind of situation. You have to cater to your community, to your shelter, to your rescue, whatever it might be. But of course, our volunteers, our fosters are essential to growing and building life-saving programs. So definitely don't overlook your volunteers. You know, see who wants to help out, who wants to train, who wants to be a peer-to-peer foster mentor, or help train up fosters to be peer-to-peer mentors, and same thing for post-adoption.
We have about 5 minutes left. I don't know if you want to go over any of your slides or if you want to take questions.
Which ones did we miss?
Like all
All of them.
I mean, I said things about them.
Okay, we can talk, well, I'll talk briefly, yeah.
Okay. Here, you can have.
Okay, all right, let's see here. Wait. Okay, so I won't go over all the survey stuff right now because we don't have that much time, but we did have over 300 respondents, ending up with 308 because of duplicate survey or duplicate entries and things like that. These are the types of people that responded from organizations. Did you already ask?
Yep, most of them fall into the behavior director, manager, or staff.
Okay. Awesome. So you can see the breakdown here, where you see 27.88% for other. They typically did fall, those positions did fall into one of these categories. They just didn't identify as so. Obviously, our main areas of interest for the survey in general. And then here you can see that there's a lot of really great in-shelter enrichment happening. We've got dog-dog play dates, dog play groups people are reporting that they have good or excellent programs. And then quiet hours during the day. And one of my favorite things is about strategic housing, which is, I know, super, super tricky in shelters. And even though I work for Best Friends, I've been working with a lot of shelters over the years and things like that. But I was really happy to see that there was pretty good response on strategic housing, such as for dogs that have extreme kennel barrier reactivity, and placing them strategically at different areas within the shelter so that to decrease that stress and that escalation in reactivity. Dog outcomes, we asked a lot of questions here. I'm sorry, it's a little small here. So we asked about decision-making processes and protocols. So the majority of our respondents do have some kind of processes or protocols to make dog outcome decisions in general. And then you can see, as Melissa kind of mentioned earlier, is that a pointer? Oh, nope, not a pointer. So special counseling in multiple languages, that's something that we at Best Friends have been working really hard on. I know other organizations have been working really hard on this as well to make sure that we're communicating to as many people as we can and reaching as many people as we can. And here that green bar skyrockets over to 70 or up to 70% as far as the, respondents saying that they don't have this program. We also asked you about bite processes and bite tracking. So here's some just general numbers about whether they're whether or not an organization is tracking annual numbers of bites occurring in the community, in their shelter, or in foster homes. And you can see the different variations here from dog bites to humans. There tends to be a little bit more tracking of that, dog to human fatalities, and dog bites to other animals, and then dog to other fatalities, or animal fatalities, I'm sorry.
We're getting the time's up sign.
What was it?
Time's up. That's what
Okay,
the sign said.
all right, one second.
Oh, 1 minute, I'm sorry, we have 1 minute.
1 minute. Bite reporting process, so this again is just an overview of organizations that reported that they do or don't have a bite reporting process for dog bites to humans, dog bites to other animals. Keep in mind that this survey was conducted with shelters and rescues that have a physical building. So this includes shelters that are municipal shelters, and rescue. So this could be skewed a little bit because not everyone's going to have this bite reporting process, especially for occurring in the community if you're a rescue. Did you go through that one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
If anybody wants information, my card's up here, so I'm happy to send you the matrix or any other information that we talked about today. Thank you for coming. Thank you.